Hey there, and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we are covering a Bears mock draft. Now, we're going to be going through all 7 rounds. There's a lot to cover with this team. There's a lot of improvement that has to happen under Ryan Poles in this season. They got to get Justin Fields some help. This is a big draft for them, a big free agency period, considering they have $94 million in cap space. So free agency is going to be huge. Also, the draft to supplement that. If you're sitting at number 1, you're sitting there as Ryan Poles, the general manager. You have to make a big decision. Now, this is an altering decision that very well could result in a trade down. Let's just operate under the idea that they stay here at number 1. What can they consider to do? To me, you look at Bryce Young, you look at Will Anderson. Those are the guys that are currently being considered. Now, I think at the end of the day, they're going to stick with Justin Fields. I'm pretty certain on that. So that kind of shifts your focus to what would have been Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. I think with what's currently going on with Jalen Carter, unless there's a little more clarity, I think it's going to result in Will Anderson being the first overall pick, a super explosive edge rusher, a guy that can set the edge. He is a dominant force in the run game, also rushing the quarterback. He's the total package for an edge prospect. And to me, it makes a lot of sense for Chicago to get better, especially in that front 7, which has been a little bit of a concern of mine heading into the offseason. They do have some playmakers there, but nevertheless, Will Anderson is going to be there at number 1. So we're going to go ahead and simulate to the next pick. I like Will Anderson to the Bears. I think that makes a ton of sense. They need some edge rushing help. They need somebody that can apply some pressure on the quarterback. Following that up in the second round here with our selection, Tyreek Stevenson just went before us. I think you kind of have to holistically look at this as another opportunity. Now, to me, I have a guy that's sitting on the board that makes a lot of sense for this team. Nathaniel Dell, Tank Dell, whatever you want to call him, super explosive playmaker from Houston, a guy that could put up some big numbers in this offense. The sheer fact that when you look at it, he can be a difference maker. I think when you look at holistically what they have Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Equanimous St. Brown. This is going to result in Tank Dell being a selection here for the Chicago Bears to get some more help. He goes in the second round, pick 54. Chicago does a nice job here and selects him. Now we move forward a little bit and get to our next selection, which you'll see as the first pick in the third round. A lot of talent still left on the board. And I look at this, and there's a lot of guys that you can consider. I'm pretty happy in the results of what we have available to us. Now, there's a couple of different things that you can look at, right? I think the secondary is pretty solid at this point in terms of what is in place. I look as the front 7 as another one that you have to consider. It's hard with the guy as talented as Luke Weipler. I'm going to go with him at Ohio State. He is a really interesting prospect. You can play him at center. You can play him at guard, provide some versatility there. And I think that makes sense for Chicago. They need to protect Justin Fields up front. Now, when you follow that up, we are in the 4th round. And there's a number of different options that I'm going to consider here. Schoonmaker makes some sense. I'm going to kind of look around the rest of the board on what else is available. See, Dorian Williams. Dorian Williams is a guy that covers a lot of space. He is a sure tackler. I think this could make some sense. Considering that Roquan Smith is gone, there's got to be somebody that can fill the gaps there. And I think Dorian Williams, considering what is still currently available, Parker Washington, I'm a big fan of his. Deuce Vaughn, love his game. Chicago is just not really needing that. Jacqueline Roy, that's another one that I would heavily consider. It's tough to not go with Dorian Williams. Dorian Williams, super awesome prospect, and I think that makes a lot of sense for Chicago at that point. Now we get to our next selection here. We got pick 133. A lot of ways to supplement talent at this point. I'm kind of looking at what's currently available. I think Colby Turner from Wake Forest, I think it's pretty critical for Chicago to beef up the interior of that defensive line. You know, this defense needs to get better and better and better. A lot of it starts with that front 7. I like what they have at corner. I like what they have at safety. And I just think that Colby Turner can be a true difference maker in the trenches. So I'm going to go with him out of Wake Forest. Chicago's sitting pretty good. I mean, overall, when you look at the draft picks that they have, obviously with having the number one pick, very, very beneficial. They could consider trading down, but I kind of like what they have if they just decide to stick there and draft outright. To me, Colby Turner makes some sense for the Bears. Following that up in round 5, couple of different names here. KJ Henry, Colby Wooden as well. I think of Colby Wooden as a guy that could be another nice mix in the pass rushing equation. Think about like Roy Robertson Harris and how critical he was for a rotational defensive lineman, for the Chicago Bears team. To me, Colby Wooden, we're going to address that edge spot once again. Now, it's pretty bold to go 2 edges, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And now I'm kind of interested in the tight end position here. You have Davis Allen, Zach Kuntz. It's tough. Will Mallory. Now, Will Mallory is projected to go a little bit later. I think, considering how good of a prospect he was, and people are now looking down on him. This was a guy that was supposed to be maybe a 2nd or 3rd round draft choice. He's all the way in the 5th round. Just didn't have the season he had hoped at Miami. I'm going to take Will Mallory. Now, I know it's a little bit early for him, but to me, it makes some sense. Maybe let's take a look at the rest of the board too. We always have to be evaluating that. I mean, Ronnie Hickman could be, when you consider the value of what he could provide at this juncture, to me, that's a tough one. That's really, really tough. It kind of depends on what you're looking at. You could also look at a backup quarterback as well, in Aiden O'Connell, big time arm, big frame. And I think that could make some sense. Bryce Ford Wheaton, good on the corner spot. So we're gonna hold off on tight end right now. We're gonna draft for some value here, and Ronnie Hickman is too talented of a prospect to pass up at this point in time. I know I had said I'd like the safety spot, but I mean, having some depth at those positions too, especially when you're drafting around here, getting the more talented guys just makes sense, especially when you're drafting, for some of those depth pieces. Ronnie Hickman, terrific all around safety. He is going to work out beautifully for the Chicago Bears. And as you will see here, that was our last selection. Now, they're going to go ahead, give us a grade on our mock. I'm kind of curious to see what they end up doing. Now, you kind of look across the board. Now, to me, Will Anderson, that's an A. That's a home run pick. Now, with Nathaniel Dell, I think this is a little bit of a mistake. Pretty big on the big board. They still give it a C+, so that the algorithm and the grading system does not make sense for that. You look at Weipler. They're at pick 64, great value, tremendous value at that spot. Dorian Williams, Colby Turner, Colby Wooden, and Ronnie Hickman, overall grade of an A-. To me, Chicago is in a great spot moving forward. They have a lot of assets, not only through the draft, but they also have a ton of free agency money for allocation. The NFC North is going to be wide open next year, and I tell you that for a fact. Anyone can win that division. Green Bay can still reclaim, their throne. Minnesota should have still a competitive roster. I think they're going to be worse next year. Obviously, we're going to see some form of regression. You look at the Detroit Lions. This is a team that's looking really scary as well. They had built on the last couple of seasons. Dan Campbell is starting to finally put it together, has the right staff in place, has the right personnel, and now it's going to be supplementing talent. But Chicago, don't sleep on them to pick up a few more extra wins going into next season. They have so much assets. Think about Jacksonville, all the free agent money they had, the allocation for that, the draft capital. It helped out their season tremendously, and they were able to win a division. So nevertheless, Chicago is in a good spot. Thanks again for stopping by. Appreciate you watching the video. Make sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy the content. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on anything NFL mock draft related. Thank you again, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.